Yes, concluding the communication strategy session, we're moving towards the smart sports management, AI and IoT, innovation in sports, fan engagement, and esports. So today we have an expert, Mr. Ramesh Ramkumar. I would like to request Mr. Ramesh to please come over the dais. Ramesh is leading IIT Madras Center of Excellence in Sports Science and Analytics, vision to be among global platform for fostering innovation in sports technology and delivering products and solutions to enhance athlete performance and fan on-ground and media experience. He has overall more than 3 decades of industry experience, including ESPN and Cricinfo, with initial corporate stint with the Tata Group in India. He has also been tasked with setting up an incubator ecosystem for sports tech startups at IIT Madras. I request Mr. Ramkumar to start his sessions for today. Please, sir. Here's a wonderful applause for Mr. Ramkumar. So have your presentation, complete the video.
Thank you. One small correction. My name is Ramesh. Thanks for the introduction. I head the IIT Madras Center of Excellence for Sports Science and Analytics. I am the CEO. I work on the center along with the guidance of Dr. Mahesh, who is sitting in the front row. He is the head of Center of Excellence for Sports Science and Analytics, IIT Madras. The center was established under his vision in 2021 to be one of the top institutes in the world in terms of work on the sports science aspect of it. Prior to this, I spent close to 24 years with ESPN. My last role there was as the head of ESPN India and South Asia. I was also heading ESPN Cricinfo globally. So what we'll do is quickly run through a slideshow indicating what's the work that we do and our vision. And then I'll do a brief session on digital sports fan engagement and potentially what I see as opportunities for India in 2036 Olympics, more from a fan engagement point of view. And I think a lot of the points that I present there would resonate with some of the themes that the professor had indicated. But my only layer there would be how can we use technology creatively there. So probably we'll just start with the slideshow introducing our center and the work that we do. Yeah. what I'll do now is just run through typical characteristics of Indian sports fans, and there I'll kind of present some
So the
findings,
slogan,
findings in terms of the digital sports fans in India. How do they behave across various sports types? What we normally hear is about the huge cricket fan in India, both on television as well as digital. But what has been the real trend in terms of adoption of other sports on digital media platform, both on sporting websites, apps, and also off platform. By off platform, I mean social media platforms. And this is clearly an important thing, as we heard from a lot of these experts, in terms of clearly one of the success of the Olympics for 2036 is genuinely is there an emerging multi-sports fan in India, genuine adoption of the content that happens, genuine adoption for the sports beyond cricket in India, both urban and rural. So we need to clearly understand what are the current sports fans in India, what is actually that beast, both in urban and rural areas, what are their characteristics, what do they consume, what is the media consumption habit, what is their off media consumption habit, and what are the opportunities for us jointly to configure something which is compelling for them to consume from a situation where currently almost 85% of the consumption is cricket and 15% is non-cricket, where almost 94% of the spend, media spend, is on cricket and only 6% goes to non-cricket. So clearly that has a bearing in terms of the economics of media spend on various sports as we have plans to host Olympics in the country. Also in terms of genuinely as we build a multi-sports culture in India. So as I said, amongst the various goals of our center, in this session we'll be focusing on two things, where my brief presentation is on the digital sports fan, but post that I'll be joined by our head, Dr. Mahesh, where we would actually specifically talk about some of the AI IoT tools that we have developed, for which we plan to work both with Sports Authority of India and TOPS in terms of enhancing our performance in various focused Olympic sports. So clearly, just to give you an idea, the total size of the Indian sports fan is estimated to be around 650 million. And out of that, almost a large part of that is a cricket audience. I would just go by my ESPN experience and give you an estimate of probably what's the digital cricket audience size. So ESPN Cricinfo in India, typically during an IPL or cricket, gets close to around 150 million users. And you can estimate can anyone even guess what is the size of a non-cricket audience that comes to digital platforms? So we have a multi-sport platform called ESPN.in, where you get compelling content for almost all Indian sports, including the long tail of other sports which has an interest in India. It gets, in the best season, our traffic was around 10 million users. So you can look at the comparative scale of cricket versus the rest, and hence both the challenge as well as the opportunity. So how do we then look at building the interest for this? So I'm just trying to come up with some pointers that we need to consider. So one of the trends that has been observed in the recent years is at least some of the emerging indigenous sports like Kho-Kho, Kabaddi. There is obviously a growing interest amongst the Gen Z, where the 15 to 25-year-old. And that's one of the fastest growing segment in the digital sports arena. So that's clearly an opportunity for us to look at. But bear in mind, we're talking about 2036 Olympics. So when you're looking at targeting the Gen Z and the millennials, clearly you're looking at targeting, or rather educating the current generation teens and tweens, which is the 8 to 12-year-old and the 13 to 19-year-old. Now you talk to any 8 to 12-year-old currently in India, or a 13 to 19-year-old, how much do they know about hockey, archery? Some of the really are gold medal promising sports for India. How much do they know the basics of the sport? How much do they know the sporting heroes in the sports? I know there is a slow acceptance and awareness of shooting and some of the other sports, but clearly there is considerable work to be done as we kind of start our process for bid. And as we discussed yesterday, by 2026, if by then we come to know our situation on the bid, with a clear roadmap for 10 years, what is the work that we do to build, I would say, first an awareness of the sport with the smaller kids in India, for them to even understand the sport, educate about the sports, and develop an interest in the sport, and further build a growing interest for them by starting to telecast, or maybe even in a smarter way, digitally making the live streaming available of some of the domestic tournaments of hockey, the local leagues of kabaddi, kho and other sports. So clearly there has to be education, there has to be awareness. The second target segment that is growing, and it is huge in number, as I'll present in the next slide, is clearly the women audience. And that's something which is almost reached a size of around 40 to 45% currently. And a unique characteristic of the recent spike in digital audience in India, which is growing almost at 2x year on year compared to urban audience, is the rural audience. So what does it throw in terms of how do we even present Olympics content, Olympics coverage, or more importantly, leading up to Olympics, how do we even showcase these sports to our audience? How do we even get them to consume content beyond cricket on digital platforms, be it the official rights holder platform, or more importantly on social media platforms, on non-rights platforms? How do we even present a content which is easy to consume, entertaining, snappy, and also educative at the same way? So clearly multilingual is a way that we have to clearly look at, because if you break down further in terms of English versus the rest, the content, sports content that's consumed in English is just around 40-45%. And that also explained why recently most of the official rights broadcasters of cricket and other sports, IPL for instance, has a 11 language feed, and that's been hugely successful. And the number of users who come to the Hindi language and surprisingly Bhojpuri language is much higher than what they get in the English feed. So these are pointers for us as we develop what should be the language strategy for India. As you're aware, IOC offered the Paris Olympics in 11 languages, including Hindi. But probably we'll have to flip it a different way for India, where you'll have to look at 11 of those languages for the global audience and maybe 15 languages for the Indian audience, where you have a microcosm of the world within India. And how do we even offer targeted language feed for each of the rural markets and targeting even semi-urban market? How do we even present non-cricket sports to a growing women audience? As I said, that's a number that is growing in size. And how do we even educate the teens and tweens, the 8 to 12, 13 to 19? The NCERT has recently revamped the complete textbook for physical education. And there are planned courses to be introduced on Indian sports and Olympic advances. But the question I would want to ask is, are we presenting Olympics of historic past, or are we presenting the vision of Indian Olympics and what we want to showcase our promised focus, which is hockey, the sports that we plan to focus on, and our sporting heroes? And how are we even presenting it? Are we presenting it in dry draft textbooks in print format, or are we presenting it in snappy, engaging digital format through smartphones and mobile phone, which is there with every kid or his mom? So educating the tweens who are the potential consumers, further growing the Gen Z audience, women audience, personalized language content for rural. So key drivers, I would say, for one, growing the audience, and even ensuring a critical mass of audience that comes for this. I think in the last session, there was a question from someone on sponsorship value and what it is vis-a-vis cricket. I would say money just follows the size. So if your critical mass of non-cricket is just 10% of what is cricket, the economics of media spend comes from that. So our attempt should be to grow the audience for non-cricket. And how do we grow it? Through all the means that we are talking about now. Now, some of these points I'm sure all of you are aware in terms of what's the reason for the kind of low following for Olympic sports. Clearly, these are sports that are not followed by As I said, the Gen Z kids, a lot of people are not aware of some of these sports. You don't see it immediately played in your neighborhood. There are very few sporting heroes from some of these sports to be followed. And that's slightly changed now, obviously can go way lot better. How do we in fact make these sporting heroes on par with maybe the heroes that we have in cricket? And that's not unlike what people believe. It's not a hugely expensive exercise. You can adopt smart digital strategies, smart social media strategies, and work in partnership with associations and federations. And a lot of them are sitting on goldmine of content. So you can create interesting content nuggets on their training sessions. You can engage with your audience, not just during live games, but offer content on their training schedules, which would be immensely educative for consumers as well. So how do you create content? How do you identify and track potential stars? How do you even showcase them? And how do you show them the pride of glory? Also, as I said, my point is there's been limited commercial support. As I said, the media math is 94% for cricket and 6%. How do we even try and slowly push it to a larger pie? And as I said, the pie grows with the audience. How do we grow that audience? Few pointers in terms of what are the opportunity areas. So obviously, the clear direction based on the recent Google report is that almost half of the Gen Z and half of the millennial audience follow both hockey and cricket. Millennial has a strong following for tennis. Badminton is followed very closely, as a huge following in the urban audience. So how do we take it slightly into the semi-urban areas? And as I said, the indigenous sports has a huge appeal in rural. Obviously, in terms of offering the presentation of this, besides multilingual, how do we even present it in a format that's appealing to these pockets based on the specific sports type, depending on the consumption that we see here? As I said, that's an important thing as we even plan as a lead up to it. How do we even, to start digitally streaming some of these domestic matches? There are few OTT platforms who have taken this position. You must be seeing increasingly YouTube live streams, a lot of kabaddi matches. There are a lot of local matches of hockey that are being streamed, which is a positive development. But clearly, there are steps that we need to take on a lot of other sports where we have clear potential to win a medal. These are points that I talk about in terms of clearly a strong Indic language strategy. How do we develop a 13 language strategy for the Olympic sports for India? And this shouldn't be based on, this shouldn't be an AI converted language as has been done for some of the events in the past. And I would say, I wouldn't want to point out specific events. A sports audience is extremely discerning. He can identify an AI translated voice to an actual sports fan. So how do we even get and develop sports personalities for various top 15 Indian languages and for at least the sports types? And they should be people who are really knowledgeable about the sport and a good healthy mix of men and women sports journalists and sports broadcasters. And also involve some of the sports stars as influencers to boost the following for these games. This gives an insight in terms of the primary media consumption. So as I said, the Gen Z is the largest follower, but the Gen Z doesn't just stick to broadcast. He or she toggles multi-screen. He toggles between his phone to a device. And also with the increasing growth, out of the 660 total sports fans that I indicated, the estimate is around 230 of them play digital fantasy. And that's a big number because a fantasy user is a heavy duty sports consumer. He not only consumes sports when it is live, he also consumes sports offline, as in he's interested in what happens prior to the game, what happens post the game. He's interested in statistics analysis. So the end game is all about how do you increase the engagement of fans? How do you grow the catchment size of the fans? This dual strategy will ensure you have a very valuable consumer segment for sponsors, advertiser. More importantly, I'm saying not just from a commercial perspective, But also from a strategic perspective, if you genuinely want to grow a multi-sport nation, that's the way to go. And even as I speak about this, though my background was as ESPN Cricket for driving the world's #1 cricket destination, let's be mindful that the next Olympics, cricket is back in the stage after almost more than 100 years. And that's a big opportunity because cricket is being played in the US, where the estimate is there are 30 million sports cricket fans in US. And with some bit of marketing, it can go to almost 60 to 75 million. There are valuable pointers that we can learn from this. How can a country which has grown to typically non-cricket grow its cricket audience from anywhere from minuscule of 15 to 20 to 75 million audience? And that's probably aggressive marketing and a combination of packaging of the sports is what we should look at as we put all our might into packaging, delivering, and making our Indian sports genuinely attractive for the growing sports fans in India, and even presenting it in a compelling manner. And as I said, that can really turn the commercial math. It can make sports as an attractive career opportunity even for sports and sportsmen and students. So let's also follow what happens during the next Olympics in LA and look at all the experimentation that is being done on cricket in a country where cricket is a minority sport. And we should look at what all things that we need to do make archery a mass sport in terms of following. How can we look at showcasing table tennis? How can we look at hockey much, much bigger than what it is now? And also our prime sports of wrestling and boxing to a larger audience. If kabaddi can be played in apartment playgrounds, historically what has been an indigenous and rural sport, that's a pointer for us in terms of looking at innovating in terms of presenting the sport, looking at how we even involve the younger generation and make it attractive, and the content and also media partnerships. Right, we spoke about all of this, and this slide kind of talks to some of those points that I'd anyway alluded to. So clearly with 2036 as a push and considering our primary medal push sports, and I kind of looked at other sports, I kind of marked out in blue potentially newer sports that could come in where we have a good contention for a medal. What should be our strategies? And I think a lot of the themes the professor in the morning hit upon, which I was really excited about, I think we should play to our strength, our multilingual audience, our rural audience. How do we get them to consume a lot more content? How do we present our sports in the most compelling regional language format? How do we make viewing extremely attractive to our audience in semi-urban and rural areas? How do we even present domestic events in all of these sports through digital platforms and social media platform? One, if we just look at the typical economics of broadcasting a game on television versus digital, it's very obvious that digital is a smart way to go, and even as you're building the sport. So can we look at working with the federations in enabling digital streaming of most of the sports that is happening, and even look at how do we leverage the training videos of some of our top athletes and using it on social media in a really smart way to engage with a lot more sports? How do we create sports education videos? I would ask you to look up the most popular YouTube content to engage with the current age kids, even on a supposedly serious topic of STEM, which is science, technology, engineering. It's presented in a nice, snappy, and easy to consume, entertaining manner, and that has the highest of consumption. So let's look at all kinds of innovative ways, partner with content providers, content platform owners, both rights and non-right platform. How do we foster partnerships with local cultural events, festivals, in terms of as we even look at a 10-year roadmap into this, so that we have a template whenever 2036 happens in terms of how do you even dovetail some of these events with the local sporting events that happen, local festivals that happen there, local cultural events that happen there. Because let's bear in mind that Indians' historical consumption habits in terms of one, propensity to play sports and propensity to play and consume sports beyond cricket. One, we need to educate, second, nudge, third, push. And it has to be through a combination of making it attractive, engaging, and also weave it along with what they do as a natural thing, which is festivals and cultural events. This is a session, where I think Mahesh would have a lot to talk about in terms of leveraging technology, AI, to look at personalized feeds wherever possible. How do we even leverage the latest in terms of AI, ML, IoT? And there are a whole lot of solutions that we have developed, some of which we'll talk about in the next session. Look at how do we even personalize feed. Just to give you an idea, within Cricinfo, we have a home page for 11 cricket nations. So what you get as a cricket fan in Pakistan would be different from what you would get as a South African cricket fan. We personalize to that extent. What you would offer as a news feed to an audience sitting in West Indies would be different from what a user gets in, say, North America. So look at personalized offerings by region type, language type, based on the style presentation on the platform. Secondly, how do you even offer content that is educative, entertaining, as well as engages both the sports fan and also people who don't know much about the sports. Few learnings from the last Olympics. You must have you read a lot about what happened on the Seine River, the Eiffel Tower. Clearly leveraging 5G to a great extent in terms of enabling some of those innovations. Getting almost a real-time update, including great amount of user engagement using AR, VR. And these are things that we can really smartly do with some of our historical landscapes where depending on whichever is the location of the usual suspects that are being discussed, you have really landmarks where users can go fire up a landmark and they can get a live historical anecdote, live sporting anecdote related to the sports event of the day. They can personalize that picture, so you can ensure a frenzy on social media. Just to give you an idea, these are numbers purely of non-rights platforms. So bear in mind there's an official rights platform which is IOC app. You would have an India-specific partner for OTT. Besides that, there'll be a whole host of non-rights platforms, social media platform. So if you look at an aggregate digital sports audience, you would have a triple digit on the higher side of growth rate that we should target for 2036. As I said, leveraging 5G technology and the sensors and what you can do with Edge AI in terms of bringing fans really close to the experience, while what happened during Paris in terms of people getting almost an experience of what is happening during the sailing event. The opening event, you could really get the experience that you are on the river side. So all those are innovations which clearly with India's technology prowess and some of the providers that we have in India, we can very well deliver on those. In terms of gaming, the official app that had those games, but we could look at a lot of variants which could have a vernacular rendition of it, including themes that resonate with the local audience to ensure interactivity during those entire duration of the Olympic Games. There's a fair bit of stuff here, but broadly what I'm kind of summarized here is how AI was used during the Paris Olympics. Typically the media rights owner, if he goes the traditional way of how it used to happen in digital or terrestrial broadcasting, the entire exercise involved laying of those huge boxes and which kind of have their own downside implications. But now with 3G and AI, the media rights owner can, as clearly on the cloud that is built in terms of the multiple camera output, that can be used to create highlights depending on a region, depending on the language type, and depending on the consumption type. So an audience in Manipur can be presented a basic basic short snap of the boxing bout in the language that they want and in a style that they want, compared to what you would present to someone in Punjab of a boxing bout, which is quite different depending on the camera angle that you want to slice and dice. And these are things that can be entirely done on the cloud. And enough and more was done during Paris, and I'm sure there'll be only a lot more innovations in this space as we look into the next few editions of Olympics. We spoke about the languages and the huge opportunity for personalization in India. From a language, from a style, from presentation, from product, depending on regional variations, you could offer your platform that could be tailored for that. Here I would like to mention an opportunity here. On Cricinfo, we launched a revolutionary product called Ask Cricinfo. I think you should just look it up. It's a text as well as voice-based application. You could just go there and ask anything about cricket, and it recognizes what you're asking and pulls out the answer. And here I don't mean the standard Google queries of averages and scores. It can go to the extent of Virat Kohli against leg spinners, playing against an opponent in a certain venue. So it actually drills down and does an extensive AI analysis and offers the thing. So can we build something like this for our Indian Olympic sports, where even as a lead up to Olympics, consumers are offered this platform to even get to know India's rich history in Indian hockey? Who are the stars? And potentially as a lead up to 2036, people even have their pick in terms of players. People get to know their records. People even try and understand what are the various moves. So it's a good way to keep fans engaged and also educate them. Paris also saw a lot of innovations in terms of venue, and smart venues is something that clearly there are a lot of innovations, a lot of partners to work with, and it offers a very efficient way of managing your crowd, ticketing, in terms of services that you provide, and even within the venue, the AR/VR engagement that you could offer. I think even here we should be very smart in terms of not follow the standard model that is happening in some of the other countries. We should rather look at what are the best innovations that we can do at the point of viewing, which is at home through apps, which is at public viewing centers, at village gatherings, town centers, city halls, and other places. So I kind of have few examples of some of the emerging trends in that. This is the latest in urban viewing, which is called shared social viewing. So potentially this could be an experiment that we could look at in some of our high traffic city zones. I would say as a more premium experience, clearly targeting metropolis. So this was launched during some of the Premier League matches. And it's a technology which is really a shared reality. So you get an experience of virtual reality, but you also have a shared community experience along with your sports fans. So if you could just play the video.
Football fans in Los Angeles have been treated to a unique new way of watching the Premier League for the 2024-25 season. The Top Flight campaign kicked off on Friday night, with Manchester United defeating Fulham 1-0 at Old Trafford, courtesy of Joshua Zirkzee's late debut goal. COSM Los Angeles, which describes itself as an experiential hub, showed the match live inside its venue. Instead of just watching the match on a TV, an 87-foot LED screen presented the game in what COSM described as shared reality.
Attackers love and defenders terrified of. So second left wing corner in rapid succession for the Cottagers. Only got on the end of the last one. Same take it, Ferreira. Manchester United defending with less than total conviction. Down to Smith Rowe.
Football fans.
Yeah, so you get the drift there. It's more a premium experience, so potentially something that we can target in our top cities. But what we should look at in a much more large distributed format is what do we do in our semi-urban and rural areas in terms of a larger community viewing experience on giant LED screens. And there again, I think there were some good experiments that were done in LA, which was again as models that we could follow, but again, bearing in mind the Indian situations of language, weaving in cultural themes and festivals, as the professor mentioned, which can be a huge opportunity, and also tying in contests and games around it. So in the interest of time, I'll wrap up and we move to the next session, which is Dr. Mahesh talking specifically about our center's work in AI, ML, IoT in some of the Indian Olympics events and the work that we are planning to do with TOPS and SAI in the coming months and a planned vision in the direction.
Thank you so much, sir, for an insightful session on smart sports technology. Now I would like to request to continue the discussion on the same topic. I'd like to request Professor Mahesh. Professor Mahesh serves as Dean, Alumni and Corporate Relation at Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. His expertise is in fluid dynamics, pulmonary mechanics, aerosol dynamics, spray nozzle design and combustion. He is passionate about building institutions that endure generation and help students and researchers, as well as to nurture, mentor, and mold the leaders of tomorrow. Please, sir, I request to have your sessions, please. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a delight to be here at the first International Olympic Research Conference. My name is Mahesh. I lead the Center of Excellence on Sports Science and Analytics along with Ramesh. Our single-pointed focus is to be partners with the athletes and coaches of the Indian sporting ecosystem in their journey to excel. We want to be the technology development partners. We want to be providing them whatever support technology can bring and give every athlete in India the edge that he or she desires to do well at their chosen games. So over the past 6 years or so that we've been informally active and formally for the last 4 years, we've worked with several federations in India. We've worked with several sporting establishments to work on their problem statements, to get them to be adopted by coaches and athletes. We worked with boxing, we worked with cricket, of course. You can't escape cricket in India, as Ramesh mentioned. We've also beginning to work, as Ramesh also mentioned, with shooting, archery, and some other combat sports that we believe gives us the potential to be the world leaders right away. There are many sports which are rather untouched by technology where India has an edge already, and we believe stepping in to take that leadership pole position gives us credibility and an opportunity both together. I want to talk a little bit about the theme of the day, which is the 2036 Olympics, and how we can all, as people invested in this ecosystem, come together to make this somewhat of a reality. As Professor Srivastava in the morning mentioned, there's a money part. I'm sure, as I was talking to him offline, $15 billion is not a lot of money in India today. There are people who can write that check out of their pockets today. Individuals. Although that model has not been experimented any time in the past in the Olympics, it's certainly something that can be a first time. One could imagine that being a reality with the Indian Olympics coming around. So the money part is really not that important. There are two aspects of Olympics in India that really I think we need to be paying attention today. One that Ramesh talked about is that we need to figure out how we can become a multi-sport nation. We are too invested in one sport, cricket, and we need to figure out how we can get other sports to take the mind share of the bigger Indian, of the larger invested population in India. I'll take a little sidebar. I was at the Kumbh 3 days ago. IIT Madras, along with IIT BHU, is working on a project with the UP government to help them understand how efficient the multimodal transport in and out of the Kumbh has been. So and I must, as a sidebar, remark that the kind of data, the kind of technology that is today being put to use in Kumbh is remarkable. So somewhere down the line, a few months from now, I'm sure there'll be a case study of what technology has done to manage this large crowd of people coming in and going out safely. But the real takeaway for me was this. We had developed an app to track every individual Shraddhalu, every individual devotee who comes to Prayagraj and leaves. So we have sort of a track of where they went, what they did, and lived. We had developed it as an app to be used on an Android phone. And our little survey right there on ground showed that our app would be used by about 5% of the people who actually come to the Kumbh. 95% of India either is still on candy bar phones. 95% of the people who we sampled were people who would be on candy bar phones or with no mobile phone at all. Fast forward 2036, clearly these numbers are going to increase. You'll see far more smartphone adoption. But the reality is that this group of people are rather untouched by digital entertainment. And it presents an amazing opportunity for India to truly become multi-sport. A rural person with a candy bar phone somewhere in rural Uttar Pradesh is dying to see a sports hero be showcased as a role model for him or her. That's the reason you see the more indigenous sports like Kho-Kho and Kabaddi really taking root. We should be able to do the same with the more Olympic indigenous sports like archery, or maybe even wrestling, boxing. There are many, many different sports that I believe we have to devise the right media strategy to reach out to these people who today are not yet in the digital world fully. Bring them on board right from day zero as a multi-sport fan. I really believe that's the shortest, that's the path of least resistance for us to take India into the world of multi-sport countries. The second point that I want to double click on, Ramesh mentioned this briefly, is the idea of India being multilingual. No other country in the world is like India in that sense. So our media strategy, our AI adoption strategy, our way of packaging sport is very unique to the way it has to be very Indian and has to be very contextual to the way our fans will consume. Again, when I look at what is happening in the world of technology, in the world of language technologies, I have a colleague, Professor Mitesh Khapra, who leads a project called Bhashini for the government of India. They are in the business of building large language models in all the 23 scheduled languages of India. So like ChatGPT, you should be able to ask your question in Gujarati and get as intelligent an answer as ChatGPT would give in English, only in Gujarati. This requires an amazing amount of back-end work. And not just that, they don't want to stop with text search like ChatGPT. They've gone on to voice. So you could ask a question in your own native voice, in your own native accent. The model will understand your question and read back an answer to you in your chosen accent. This is not a pipe dream. It's already a reality. You can go on Bhashini and test this idea, and in about 6 months, the API will be ready for commercial adoption. So when I look at Olympics 2036, I see all these little technology pieces that will begin to come together to make this bigger story closer to reality. We need all these little pieces of the puzzle to come together to really make that bigger goal sort of more grounded in the India, in the Bharat that we all live in. The last point I want to leave you all with is the power of technology itself in making sporting more exciting and sports more our sports people more competitive. How many of you have seen the national games, either on TV or live? Okay. In a self-selected sporting audience, I'm seeing less than 30%. If I did this at a fluid dynamics conference or a mechanical engineering conference, it would be minuscule. I think that's the start. Make the national games a priority. Make them as competitive as one would like our Olympics to be. Make the national games the showcase event of, for the country to rally around. And I think, and when you start to do that, all of the technology elements that need to fall in place for a state level athlete to be competitive on the national stage would find encouragement. And from there, you see the evolution of an Olympic level excellence. The equivalent of this in the US, which is obviously one of the world's biggest sporting superpowers, is the NCAA ecosystem, the National Collegiate Athletic Association ecosystem. NCAA is a highly competitive multi-sport league in some sense. That has to be replicated, whether it be at the collegiate level or school level or just at the state and district levels. We need our own version of an NCAA that will make watching multi-sport competition exciting for everybody. I think with that, I believe that is a start that will sort of get the juggernaut rolling towards much bigger things. Thank you all for your time. We look forward to the interaction and the questions.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we'll be having a panel discussion. When we talk about technology, youth, innovations, how can we forget our innovation and technology partner? So I'd like to request Mr. Neil Mehta to come over for the moderation. Mr. Neil is a chairman and co-founder of Hyperlab, a sports technology startup revolutionizing fitness and training through AI-powered physical intelligence. Featured on Shark Tank India in 2024, has deployed over 300 units of its flagship product, Helios, proudly made and designed in India, supporting over 1,500 active users across the country in enhancing their agility and reflexes. So I'd like to request Mr. Neil to take over the moderation sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramesh, Professor Mahesh. It was it was truly an enlightening overview of how digital engagement is evolving, particularly in India. I would like to start off with a question to you, Professor Mahesh. Having guided so many research projects, having guided so many research projects in IIT Madras, what do you think is the biggest roadblock in India for grassroots academies in adoption of smart and
effective IoT solutions? First, roadblock is the idea of data not being a threat to the coach. Very often we've encountered coaches who take a skeptical view of data as though it is going to one day replace them. Okay? There's no threat of that at all. I'll take a case in point. I don't know how many of you watched the Australian Open that just ended. For the first time, ATP experimented with a coaching pod at the floor level. There were 4 team members of every player. I don't know if you saw a view of the coaching pod itself. There was a TV that was showing live stats, real-time stats of where the ball was hit, of first serve percentage of the opponent, first serve percentage of your player, the entire stat. I think it's a matter of 2 years or less before you will start to see signaling from that coaching pod to the player. I can't imagine it being more than 2 years. That the player would get real-time input on what to serve, where to serve, based on the data. It will not replace the coach. It's going to make the coach smarter. So the first roadblock I see is that. And the second is, very often, and this is true with all data science problems, that we are not we don't think data science and AI ML from day zero. We don't bring in data in a clean fashion. It's important to make sure that the stream of data that we acquire from any sensor, vision system that we have is structured, meta-tagged, and has the necessary superstructure, the framework for an AI model to dive into and make sense of it. So I think these are the two. If we can structure the data stream in a manner that, bearing in mind that an AI model has to consume this, not just a coach looking at the video, we will do a much better job. I'll give you a case in point there as well. Very often, when we go to watch a boxing bout, there are people filming the boxing bout. It's usually on a tripod, or sometimes even the coach is going around. Now, the coach carrying a video camera around is of absolutely no use to the AI model, right? So we need to bear in mind what could be of use and what will not be of use.
Definitely. And I would just like to double click on the coach's angle. How do you see humanizing AI for sports? So when I say that coaches are afraid that it might replace them, how do you perceive coaches should look at AI and how can it complement their day-to-day work?
I think this is the statement that is often made by everybody. Professor Jan LeCun, one of the top 3 people in the world today in AI, said this at a recent lecture at IIT Madras. Said AI will not replace people. People will get replaced by people who know AI. So coaches will get replaced by coaches who understand the power of AI. And I think we just need to understand that idea. Code writing will not go away. Code writers will get replaced by code writers who know how to use AI. So secretaries got replaced by secretaries who knew how to use Microsoft Word. Same idea.
Thank you, Professor. Ramesh, there is a question for you. You have seen how first-hand media and technology has evolved and how it has made IPL a big hit in India. Like we have seen in your presentation as well, for indigenous sports like archery, kho-kho, kabaddi, we are slowly bringing in those nuances. But if you had to double-click on it, if you had to pick a sport, should we go in phase-by-phase sports manner? Because you are trying to build a multi-modal sports fan, how do you see this evolving? How should the journey be for next 12 years?
I think firstly we should first ride on some of the current success of the existing multi-sports. So I think straight away, if we can together work with players in the kabaddi, volleyball, and the experiments that they have done, and further amplify the effort there. The second tier would be looking at newer sports, which is hockey. Surprisingly has been there for so long, but in terms of reach and impact, it's still not gone the way it should, considering the promise. So how do we ensure that right from a grassroots level, a school level, 1, there's an increased adoption of that sport. 2, the following is covered, both digitally and on social media. 3rd, our hockey stars are showcased as real stars in the space. And all 3 going hand in hand with targeting a lot more people both in urban and rural areas to one, play the sport, because genuine fans would only follow if the younger generation kids start to play the game, and then naturally over a period of time start to follow the sport.
Correct. Thank you very much, sir. And I'll just have a add-on question to it, which is for both of you. You mentioned the relationship between sports education, how NCRT has also revamped their current physical education books. What is the relation between a good fan who is educated in sports for upcoming digital fans to evolve? Basically, sports education and being a good sports fan. How do you see a relation between those two things?
I would again go by my ESPN experience and also the trends that are really seen and really the advanced sports markets. So ESPN developed something called a ESPN Innovation Center, where they kind of innovated in the forefront of presenting content. So they experimented with an AI presenter. So all those tend to fall flat. So a sports fan is extremely discerning. They like someone to capture the nitty-gritties of what is happening on the field, on the sport. So to your question, there's a big difference between someone who's a fleeting sports fan, who is just there simply because it's a fad, as you can see for some of the IPL matches. So for someone who is really an educated sports fan, I think if I read your question right, who understands the sport and has a genuine interest in the sport, and might follow it or at least want to drill down deeper into the sport, he at a point of time becomes a fan. He would really want to know and follow the game and want to be seen only with experts in the game. And that also explains why certain formats of sports presentation work even in the broadcast medium. And that also explains why, the often question that is asked is, a Google can easily build a sports destination. Why does that not work compared to an ESPN or say a Cricinfo? A sports fan is extremely discerning. He doesn't like to be seen with a group of flirters. He likes to be in his own closed community. Unless you're saying that it's a wider group of a kind of a fleeting sports fan.
Fair enough.
I think yes, sir.
Correct. Professor Mahesh, a question to you. From your perspective as a researcher, what are practical steps teams and federations, smaller federations in India, can take to safeguard athletes' data and keep running systems smoothly? So with the 5G coming in, you have a lot more data that is being captured, and there's an issue of privacy as well as the data safety. So what are small steps can be taken in if we have to start thinking for future onwards?
Whether you like it or not, whether the federation has it or not, Google has it, right?
Yes.
So there is, data privacy is now a central linchpin in our AI strategy across the country. Everything we do at IIT Madras is adherent to the DPDP Act and the requirements that DPDP has on us. Having said that, these are all enablers. At the end of the day, an athlete wants to do better, do well. A coach wants to help that athlete become better. That pair is more or less an independent pair. I'm talking an individual sport, a team sport, you can sort of make the same analogy. But that pair, the coach and the athlete or athletes, make their data decisions. They're empowered to make their own data decisions, right? So it's a matter of finding a credible partner that can work with them and help them do more with their own data. First, secure their data, structure their data, help the data be archived in a manner that can be used for a long time. If you want to ask, 5 years ago, what did I do? What was my height, weight, and anthropometry, and what am I today? And Olympics come every 4 years.
Correct.
So you have to really be able to archive data from a long time ago. Someone like Sharat Kamal, I met him in Chennai recently, right? He's outlasted multiple Olympics. It's a classic case of a person who has been able to archive his own data for a very long period of time. Correct. To be able to do well for himself. So I think these are all the requirements of any good AI model, and those same requirements get passed on. Correct. To a coach and an athlete pair.
Perfect. Sir, going to that point, there's a question that comes from Indian context specifically. India is a price-sensitive market, and with a large number of population, we cannot spend unlimited budget. So where do you see a striking balance between a cutting edge technology versus every Indian athlete gets a taste of IoT and AI performance centers around it?
So in the space you are talking about, high performance
Correct.
athletics in India, we are not a price sensitive market.
Okay.
Colonel Joel is here, he runs tops. The amount of money India spends on every athlete going to the Olympics is absolutely not a L1 low price bargain.
Okay.
We are there to make sure our athletes have the best facilities that any other country in the world would provide to a similar athlete.
Understood.
Now, if you come down to the next level, come down to a district level athlete.
Correct.
At the district level, yes, there may be a little bit of price sensitivity, but imagine this. Imagine a district in rural Bihar where they want to conduct a 100-meter sprint race. They need a gate timer.
Correct.
Right? Just to sort of make sure there's some objectivity to the way this race is being timed. Those kinds of technology components, I think, provide us a great opportunity for indigenization and bring down the price. Again, I will not use the word price sensitive because even that situation is not where they will choose not to have it if it's 5 rupees or 10 rupees more expensive. I think India today has gone beyond the core idea of price only sensitivity.
Correct.
We are not a price only sensitive market.
Correct.
We also demand performance. Tata Nano is now a case study of is taught in schools, right?
Correct.
As to why price sensitivity alone is not a good thought process.
Thank you, sir. Ramesh, a question regarding esports. As esport is growing in India, it is reaching a 1 billion market cap according to certain resources. Does this shift in digital competition and the landscape affect the traditional sports as to how they are being viewed and how the marketing is being spent on?
It is, and I would say it's an opportunity purely from a commercial point of view. But as someone who's deeply wedded to sports and its development, and as I said, Indian Olympic sports development, it's something which needs to be balanced. So as I said, if our core audience, which is our growing teenagers and 8 to 12-year-old, if increasingly they're going to be exposed to console games and Xbox and esports, how do we even get them on the ground to play? Because as I said, you can't get a genuine sports fan unless they've really played one or two sports, at least one sport. So I would say more on balancing this effort in terms of looking at the commercial opportunity without cannibalizing the growth of a genuine sports fan who needs to grow. So as a nation, we need to invest, I would say, more in playing sports. By playing sport, I mean playing in the actual playing field.
Understood.
Especially for the growing grassroots level children and athletes.
Over here, I have a question that is tied up to, again, that digital essence. Currently, as you mentioned, we are spending more on digital fans. Fantasy games are coming up. A lot more fan engagement is happening digitally. Do you see a way of improving fan engagement in physical spaces as well?
Few things that I said were, if you're saying from a fan engagement point of view, as I said, we need to look at our own novel ways of look at giant LED screens. Already we have some examples of that in IPL fan parks. Can we look at a slightly low cost initiative of that in some of our smaller towns and villages? A giant screening need not be LED screens. How do we even ensure that it's a very wholesome experience for a larger catchment of fans? And introduce interactivity even within that. So you could, at the screening stage, bring in certain innovations for the fans who are aggregated in that place.
Understood. Thank you, sir. A question to both of you. With Olympics 2036 coming down the line, 12 years down the line, we'll have much more digital reach to audiences and players. And we will, like we discussed, we have to relook at how physical stadiums are redesigned. What is your take, or if you can give some examples that are happening in the current ecosystem, how physical stadiums are being redesigned so that there's a stadium 2.0 for the future?
Well, I'm not the core expert on it, but I'll give you my fan side thought on that. Our overall stadium infrastructure and our stadium experience is at least 100 years old. at what 100? We're talking Roman Colosseum style stadia, right? There's nothing that has fundamentally changed. I was in the US a few months ago, and every time I go, I watch a baseball game or one of the sporting events just to sort of see what is new. I went to a San Francisco baseball game, and absolutely the same fan experience from 20, 35, 30 years ago. As Professor Srivastava was speaking this morning, just a thought crossed my mind. If ticketing is only 5 to 10% of the total revenue, can we make this, the 2036 Olympics, the first ticket-free Olympics ever?
Wow.
And see if we can, again, this thought was inspired partly by my, time at the Kumbh. If you can imagine a stadium that's just a natural amphitheater of sorts, where people can aggregate and cheer with the right experience infrastructure setup, I believe we can sort of make this a very different Olympics. Probably not all sports, but some sports where this is even possible. Where you don't need to build a closed stadium infrastructure and spend billions of dollars on just that part. Let's figure out natural venues where this sort of a fan engagement is even possible. As Ramesh said, everybody today, of some relevance to this discussion, is already watching sport even inside the stadium on a screen.
Yes.
Right? So now, does the stadium really matter? Which is more important, my presence in the stadium or the device in my hand? And if both are important, in which fraction, in which weightage?
Correct.
I believe, 12 years from now is a very long time for the world of telecommunications. We really can't prognosticate what phones and devices in our hands would look like. But I believe we should think different.
Correct. Thank you, sir. We can open the questions to the audience.
Thank you, sir. Sir, in your presentation, you talked about the fantasy sports. That fantasy sports is growing, and it is a good point that the new generation is get addicted to the fantasy sports, and they are taking interest into the fantasy sport. But at the same time, this new generation is from the particular tiers, 1 or 2, 3 cities or specific financial families, financial sound families. But what do you think about the games like Rummy Circle or something like these are coming on the various websites, and the advertising they are doing? The middle class or low middle class, which is the higher numbers in our country, they are getting diverted to these games, and their main focus is getting shifted from the actual games or actual sports to the sports which is not relevant at all for us. What do you think, or how it is important to shift that class, or is it really important to shift that class from the unwanted games to the fantasy sports or esports?
Your point is right in terms of a certain chunk of audience going for these. I won't even classify Rummy Circle and others in the cricket or any sports fantasy space. As you're aware, in most of the advanced sports market, fantasy is a huge segment. And in fact, the most evolved sports fan is a very heavy fantasy consumer. So fantasy per se is not a space which kind of corrupts a sports fan. It in fact makes him a much more deeper multimedia, multi-sport fan and a more engaged sports fan. So probably I wouldn't look at fantasy in that bucket, but maybe the other product which is more a game of chance offering and any offering than that space clearly doesn't follow in the sports category. So I wouldn't even bring those under the discussion on sports as we are talking now.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Praveen Rawal, and I'm tech data science and machine learning only. So my question to you is about to a very root level, if you talk about sports, so there is a thing about a scouting of a talent, and how data science or the machine learning or the artificial intelligence is going to help to scout all those talents for this Olympic competition or the mega events or the mega competitions which going to occur.
I'll kind of ask Mahesh to speak about it, but before that, what I would say is As a center of excellence, one of the big things that we identified is clearly this absence of even grassroots level data of Indian school kids. That is even the 8 to 12-year-old and 12 to 15, which I mentioned is a core audience. So as a center, we have come up with a novel technology solution called EduSwast, where it essentially looks at technology enabling the PE education system in India and enabling the government in its vision of launching a graded physical education report card, which is a stated goal in the NEP 2020. So what IIT Madras would do is work along with various stakeholders to launch this toolkit, which is essentially a combination of certain hardware and software, which would measure the activity level of students during the physical education class and grade their progress. That's the first step, even to know how active they are. The second level is your question of their propensity towards various sports. How do we even track that with various specific tools? The third layer comes is in terms of the super achievers, in terms of identifying early Olympic talent. So there I'll kind of add Mahesh to add this layer.
So I think along the way, using data for identifying talent from grassroots level requires a structured approach, requires an approach where we are tracking young athletes from when they are, unknowns in a structured data on a structured data platform. That is something we've talked to Sai and the government about creating. There are some private platforms, but they're not as I believe as widely adopted, and so we need to create a platform that is widely adopted, that will bring on data from our 12-year-olds today. So just to our Olympic contingent in the year 2036 are all 10 or 12 right now, and we don't know where they are, but they are going to be playing in the 2036 Olympics. We need to figure out a strategy of first gathering this data in a structured manner. In the world of sport, this has been one of the missing links. In every other world where there's a lot more money riding on the whole idea, this has already crept in quite well. So we just need to make sure we take that same structured approach to gathering this data on these quote-unquote unknown athletes today, in the hope that we have our Olympic hopefuls in there.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, sir. First of all, recently, two days back, I read news that IIT Madras has opened its door for sports quota. So I congratulate IIT Madras to start initiative, because IIT itself is a brand. And in India, what we do at Sportsman Start, he can't do education and sports hand in hand. Many have to left his education and go sports field. So first of all, if IIT has started this, all other IITs definitely will go, and all other universities of national eminence will start it. Sir, as a center of excellence, I just want to know if such things like we have a military schools for the where we take children at the age of 6. Why not a center of excellence like IIT Madras start initiative for the ruler through trials, or to take, because we have got time for 2036 we got a time, so we can take students at the age of from class 6, 7 with Sai a trial there, and this is a center of excellence, we can grow it there. These players of 5, 6 years they stay there and they continue there in IIT and do their education and sports side by side. They work as maybe they become an Olympian or maybe a sports scientist in coming days. And and linked to this, as the previous question is, that we as a rural population, we have said that we don't have a data with the rural population. As IIT is itself a brand, we're talking about a brand, India brand. IIT is also a brand. And if somebody, IIT go to the rural area as a brand, they will conduct a trial with Sai. Like previously there are trials for like Speed Star. When I was young, I also given a trial for Speed Star, ESPN Speed Star. It's a very famous trial. And we choose a fast bowler. So why not for the basic rural population where the basic sports like sprint, archery, these things are, so why not IIT and Sai can come up with this plans like that and do a trial and make a way for 2036. It's my question to you and also kind of suggestions to you, sir. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for your wishes. I'll take a few minutes to talk about the IIT Madras Sports Excellence Admissions Program. It's the first time that an IIT has stepped up to do this. And it's always difficult to be the first in any of these kinds of initiatives. We today have 5 athletes of national recognition, at the junior level obviously, who are studying undergrad for their undergrad degrees at IIT Madras. And we believe the next year around we'll see a lot more interest, and the news item has really gone viral on many different media channels, and we are hoping interest will go to the point where other IITs will seriously consider such an idea. To your earlier point, what Ramesh talked about as Edu Swast is basically that to go to every school across the country eventually, a couple of years from now we hope, and profile children in the schools on basic anthropometric and biomechanical parameters. So we have a 0th level database of what performance pool we have at our disposal across the country. And from there you can conduct these speed star like competitions that can select athletes for specific sports through a series of trials, as you say. But fundamentally I see one big change that is happening in the last several years. I've talked to people who lead sporting brands in India, the likes of Puma. They are seeing unforeseen growth in India. So I think what that is telling us is there is broad adoption of wellness and fitness as part of their day in the young men and women of India. I think all of this is sort of, in my mind at least, coming together, that I think we'll see some good come out.
Hi, I'm Colonel Johal. I'm heading the TOPS division at SAI. So just adding on to what you asked regarding the rural India, we are working on a lot of schemes. One of them is a district level school, sports school. So we aim to have one school, and it is not that we are coming up with a new school. We are also, and it is not only restricted to government/private schools. We had a meeting with all the top corporates about 2 weeks back. And we want public-private partnership. It's not about government control, it's about creating the facilities which you rightly said. So aim is to have one district level sports school in the country, in every district by 2028. And second is regarding your point regarding the military school. Okay, military schools, Sainik schools, Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas, Kendriya Vidyalayas, all state-run schools, they're all very much on the radar. A scheme is already in the works, and probably maybe another 2 to 3 months it will be out. And we are targeting everything rather than going for creating new things. There is lots and lots of infrastructure which already exists. So we want to strengthen that first. And there is another, like what he was saying, about creating a system for this thing. The system, there is one system which already exists. We are already in talks with IIT Madras, and some great ideas we are working on, which very soon we are going to formalize and sign an MOU, and we'll start work on that. And we are also working a lot, and again that scheme also is in works, final print, and it will soon be out, is that we want to empower the Indian coaches, starting from grassroots level to the elite levels. And there is also new amendments coming to we have something called Assistance to National Sports Federations. Those are the norms issued by Sports Ministry, which govern the kind of funding, the various heads under which the government gives funds to the federations. So there also, not only for players, we are also going to give a lot of emphasis on training our coaches, more so the grassroots coaches. And it's a moment, you see right now, Honorable Sport Minister giving a lot of push on cycling. Actually, PMO is giving Prime Minister is giving a lot of push on. It is not about, I see a lot of discussion here just about champions. No, that is just a byproduct. We want to encourage sports culture. We want people to just take to sport, even everybody, just for happiness, for fitness.
But excellence is a very, very small, subset of the entire bigger picture. So lots and lots of new things under the Honorable Sports Minister's guidance and leadership are under works. So just wait for about 2-3 months. You'll have a lot of good news. Thank you.
Okay, so Colonel Saab have just informed us about the DLSS schools. So sir have also discussed that under 10 or 12 years of age athletes will be the star in 2036 Olympics. So this is the main concern. But if we talk about the DLSS schools in Gujarat, SAG people are also here. So one of your best DLSS school is Banaskantha, who gets the maximum medals in Gujarat. But my concern is only this, that mainly the competitions or the selection in these DLSS schools is under 11 years or under 9 years is on the basis of just 50 meter or 100 meter race. No ball game activities till 11 years. All the federations have competitions under 14. All the competitions are at under 14. So we must add some ball game activities at lower level at the age of 5, 6 or 7 maybe. Thank you.
No, we are writing the testing protocols for not only one but almost 25 sports, which is going to be publicly made available, because we'll put that information. As of now we want to standardize the protocol so that whether the test is happening in Gujarat or in Kerala or in J&K or in Assam, the method used is same, so that the data obtained, what Professor Mahesh was telling, needs to be structured. And that structure has to be defined uniformly across for everybody. Then only we can compare. So we are not, everybody is very much, inside, and we are working to cover all the aspects. Lots and lots of works are in progress. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Done? All right. So, a great discussion which we had on innovation, technology, and from the past, present, and what we are going to do in future from the tops, schemes and all. So, I'd like to request CEO Target Olympic Podium Scheme, Colonel Nachatar Singh Johal, to please felicitate our distinguished speakers for today, Professor Ramesh and Professor Kumar, for sharing their expertise.
Sorry, gentle correction. I'm not a professor, and I'm also not Kumar.
Sorry.
I'm Ramesh. Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
Apologies. Yeah.
No problem.
Big round of applause for. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to request Director BCORE. Sir, please, just wait for 1 minute. Director BCORE, Dr. Utsav, to felicitate our innovation and tech partner, Mr. Neil, for his wonderful moderation during the session. Thank you so much, gentlemen. There is a slight change to our schedule in the evening hours due to a sudden demise of Colonel Jain, who is a research scholar at RRU. So due to the sudden demise, we have rescheduled the gala dinner and the cultural evening to the next date. So we'll be now we are concluding the first session of the day with meaningful discussions on the topics